The time is now 11:50, and I am going to call this meeting to order. My name is Tanika Frostamusa. I am the Secretary of State's designee for the Amistad Commission. This is the 10th meeting of the Amistad Commission. At first, I do want to say, since our last meeting, we do have a new Secretary of State, Rosanna Rosado, who recently joined, and also we have a new State Education Department Commissioner, Mary Ellen Ilya, since our last meeting as well. At this time, I do want to do a roll call for those participating with us today. In Albany, we'll start here first. If we could just introduce yourselves and on the state.
Okay. I'm Carlos Medina, and I'm the Vice Chancellor, Chief Diversity Officer at SUNY.
I'm Tamu Chambers, and I am the liaison, the education liaison, and I teach African American history and other courses at Hudson Valley Community College and Empire State.
My name is Kate Walsh. I'm an exhaustive resource at the state. I'm Patricia Flynn, and I'm representative of the state education.
Just so you know, we can't hear from that side of the room. We could not hear.
Okay.
Does this help?
Okay, let's try. I'm Patricia Poland.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, yes.
Okay.
Great.
I am the representative for the New York State Commissioner of Education.
And Tony Giardina, Executive Deputy Secretary of State. And
Matt Tebow, Director of Intergovernmental Affairs and Legislative Counsel at the Department of State.
Wonderful. And we also have members participating from our New York City office. Would you please state your name?
Okay, my name is Sylvia Wong Lewis. I'm the CEO of Narrative Network. It's a media company, and I'm happy to see everyone and be here.
Jeffrey Prime, I'm the mayor of the village of South Floral Park.
Laz Benitez, the Director of Public Information for the Department of State and the website liaison for the subcommittee, the Amistad Commission.
Wonderful. And those who are participating by phone, I'm sorry, is there someone else?
Yes,
No one else here.
Enid.
Okay.
Enid Schildkraut. I'm retired chair of exhibitions and curator at the Museum for African Art and also at the American Museum of Natural History. And I'm an Africanist scholar.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Enid Schildkraut.
Enid. Okay, thank you.
Enid.
I think I'm next. I'm Robert Lloyd, the Executive Director of Long Island Citizens for Community Values, which we involved in many different racial things that take place here on Long Island.
Thank you.
I'm Jonathan Cornu. I'm a Staff and Curriculum Development Specialist at the Madison Oneida BOCES in Verona.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next.
That would be Harold Bellinger. I'm an attorney, educator, and independent contractor in Long Island, North Babylon.
Okay. Is there anyone else on the phone?
This is Mary Teresa Strack. I'm a retired principal of an urban school in Troy, New York, and I'm happy to be here this morning.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, at this time we're going to, I forgot to add one agenda item, and that's the adoption of the minutes from the October 16th, 2014 meeting, which was the last meeting of the Amistad Commission. That was sent via email last night to all members. At this time, may I have a motion to adopt the minutes? Okay.
I so motion.
A motion was made by Tamu Chambers up here. Would you like to second?
I second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, the minutes of the October 16th meeting is now adopted. At this time, moving on with the agenda, we're going to have an update from the State Education Department liaison regarding the implementation of the new social studies framework, and I'm going to turn it over to Patricia Poland at this time.
Thank you very much. With regards to the social studies framework, the framework itself had been adopted in 2014. Subsequent to that adoption, there had been some changes to commissioners' regulations regarding what is necessary for a high school diploma, and therefore information about implementing the framework did not really come out to all districts until March of 2015. Simultaneously, the department undertook a project using Race to the Top funds to create some curriculum resource materials for teachers to use. We refer to it as our resource toolkit. It's housed electronically on a website called the C3 Teachers, because the work that was done was under the direction of S.G. Grant from Binghamton, along with Kathleen Swan from Kentucky and John Lee from South Carolina, and the three of them are the co-authors of the National Social Studies Framework for Career, College, and Civic Life, so that we've housed our resources there. And among the resources that were developed, we have, and the resource itself, the set of information was drafted by New York State teachers and packaged together using this model called the inquiry design model, where you have a question that students are posed with, and then supporting questions with sources of information, primary wherever possible, for the students to work with to respond to the supporting question, and then finally a summative activity, which then should reflect back on the overall question. And last but not least, a taking informed action component, where we're asking the students to take this information that they have learned and determine how can that be applied now to their lives today. The ones that would be of most interest to the Commission would be the one on sugar and slavery, which was developed for our 5th grade students. There is one on Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was developed for the 7th grade. And in the 11th grade, there were 2 developed, one focusing on emancipation and one focusing on the civil rights movement. So again, I hope that you can all see how the State Education Department has taken to heart that notion of inclusion and making sure that resources are available to all people, incorporating the African American story along with any other history that they're studying. In addition, on the other side of our spectrum, so to speak, in the world of the English language arts, modules were developed by vendors and made available through Engage New York. And those modules also, each year, there's actually one for every grade that does take a look at, except for grade 3 and 6, there's something there for every grade that looks at an African American story. For example, in the pre-kindergarten, they're looking at contributions of Dr. Martin Luther King and President Obama. In the kindergarten, they're looking at the president, and President Obama is the first African American. In the 1st grade, they're looking at some history of slavery. In the 2nd grade, they look at contributions from Jackie Robinson and Dr. Martin Luther King. In the 4th grade, the students get the chance to look at the voting rights and responsibilities, including women's suffrage and then the roadblocks for the Jim Crow laws. 5th grade, they take a look at the Jackie Robinson book, Promises to Keep. 7th grade, they examine the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. 8th grade, there's a focus on A Mighty Long Way by Carlotta Walls Lanier, and a photo essay entitled The Little Rock Girl, 1957. In 9th grade, they read Sugar Changed the World, A Story of Magic, Spice, Slavery, Freedom, and Science. 10th grade, they focus on a letter from the Birmingham jail. 11th grade, they have the opportunity to examine W.E. Du Bois, The Souls of Black Folk, as well as Booker T. Washington, Atlanta Compromise speech. And in 12th grade, materials are out there for reading the autobiography of Malcolm X and analyzing the argument presented in New Jim Crow, Mass Incarceration in the Age of Colorblindness by Michelle Alexander. Now, all of these resources are made available for free. They are not required resources because in the state of New York, the Education Department supplies a framework which defines what the curriculum goals should be and or the standards, but it's a local decision as far as implementation and making use of the resources. But our resources not only are available in New York State, but they are also available nationwide because all of them are housed in an open educational resource format, so anyone who would like to use these resources can use them. That's the SED update on what we've been doing.
Okay, are there any comments or questions on Ms. Coleman's report?
I can say
Question.
I'm sorry, are those...
I wondered if you have any, from what you just said, that they're not required, is there any way to ever know how much they are being used across the state?
At this point, within the department, we do not have the staff or the resources to be able to determine to what extent they're being used. The person at C3 can tell us in terms of how many hits to web pages. Likewise, we get that information about the Engage New York modules. But in terms of what happens after that, we don't have a means of determining that because there's no staffing to do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That
Patricia,
brings me to a question. The state budget cycle is now in progress. My question is SED pursuing a budget bill or a program bill to try and develop the staff to acquire the information necessary and to make the findings of the commission implemented throughout the state and expand the role? In other words, are you looking for a budget bill or a program bill to expand staffing and acquire necessary data for future expansion based on the commission's findings?
At this point in time, the commission's findings were just shared with the new commissioner and her senior deputy and her deputy. And our major concern at this point in time is that the allocation would need to be totally separate from anything that the Department of Education has asked for to date, because this was not something that they had incorporated in information that they have already shared across the street. To the best of my knowledge.
That brings me to my last point. Because it would have to be totally separate, that would be inclusive of a budget bill at this time. Has such a document been constructed or it's in the process of being constructed? Or as opposed to just including it as an add-on on a program, overall, a departmental program bill?
I don't feel qualified to answer that question because I'm not really well versed with our legislative process, and my governmental relations person is not here with me today. That would be something we could pose to him. However, I think it's important to understand that from the State Education Department's perspective at this point in time, the Commission's work has been housed and facilitated through the Department of State because, in fact, there never was any allocation for this work. I don't know if you're at all familiar with how much the State Education Department has suffered budget cuts year after year, and programs that have been designed and created by the legislature, by the governor, and never accompanied with funding for those programs to be implemented by our staff. Instead, the existing staff is expected to keep
adding. I've spent a great deal of my life in Albany working with both finance committees. I do understand that. All right, I'll defer for now.
Okay, there's a question by
Good afternoon,
Carlos
James.
Yeah,
Medina.
just
coming on the
a
line.
quick question.
Could you hold on the phone for one moment? We have a question by Carlos Medina.
The curriculum content that you updated us on, that's not required, or is that required?
What appears in the framework is
Right.
in fact designed so that people can use that information and build their local curriculum.
Okay.
Okay? When it comes to required versus not required,
Okay.
across the state, by and large, what is tested is what is taught. We've lost the 5th grade social studies assessment. We've lost the 8th grade social studies assessment. The only assessment that remains now will be the grade 10, because it will split from being a 9-10 to a grade 10 in 2018, and then our U.S. history and government.
Okay.
We also are suffering because with the new pathways to a high school diploma, the students are no longer required to pass 2 Regents exams in social studies. They are only required to pass 1 Regents exam in social studies, along with 1 math, 1 English, 1 science, and they could pass a second social studies, as historically had been the case, or a second math or a second science. We have put into regulations that the students must earn the 4 units of credit in social studies, and that they must take the 2-year global program along with the U.S. and the participation in government in economics. However, I'm already receiving calls from different districts to say, oh, can we develop a course that goes like a non-Regents route per se? And we're very apprehensive about that for fear that, one, you might close the door on a student that still needs that door open for a graduation requirement.
Right.
But we are definitely looking at we don't have, similar to the notion of an appraisal of who's doing what, we don't have it's not regulation, it's
Right.
curriculum, and therefore we also don't have a staff to go and say, well, what are you actually doing in your classrooms?
Yeah, I got that. It's a great framework.
I know. And there's more coming too. There's a revision coming that in
Are you
7th
going to
grade.
be adding a whole module for grade 10, or when you mentioned the change for grade 10?
In grade 10, the change really is the fact that for social studies, the exam will only be on grade 10 now. Instead of a 2-year global history and geography exam, it's now only going to be an exam on the 1 year. That will be affecting students that enter as freshmen this coming fall, the 2016 cohort. The other thing that you will be seeing in the near future will be some subtle changes on the K through 8 framework, although one isn't so subtle because in 7th grade when we re-examined it, we realized that we could easily put into the framework the actual Amistad event in an example of when people were fighting against slavery, and it's also critical because I asked my person who helps in 11th grade to look at the court case so that we will enhance that more within the curriculum than it's ever been before.
Okay.
I was just wondering if you're going to add things for grade 10, whether, I mean, I'm speaking from the point of view of an Africanist, but there's only one sentence there which says the impact of the slave trade on Africans' political and cultural systems, but there's very little about the cultures of Africa, which were certainly in some respects brought to this country in terms of knowledge of how to plant rice and arts and crafts and all kinds of things. Can that be added? I mean, is it appropriate to make suggestions of what could be added?
It is, in fact, appropriate. May I also suggest that you look at the actual framework document, because this was just a quick summary of what's there. It would be really appreciated if you could look at the framework document, which is posted on Engage New York, specifically the 9 through 12. And I would really appreciate it if you have suggestions to please send them to me, because we just finished kind of a review of K through 8. And we're going to be looking at the 9 through 12 to see if, in fact, there are features that we missed the first time through that could be, in fact, added in the future. So I'd be happy to hear that information from you.
Oh, okay, I'll do that. Do I send them to Pam? Is this Pam speaking?
This is Patricia Poland speaking. Patricia Poland at the State Ed Department. And is this...
Should I pass them to Pam or straight to you?
You can pass it through Pam, or straight through me. Is this Enid speaking?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, Enid, I'll send you an email so you.
About that as I read this, because I also, as we're all aware, that there, as well as African Americans, there's a lot of people in the state who are actually born in Africa, children of Africans, and they, I think, would have something to contribute to the dialogue, at least.
On that note, one of the things you would be interested in noting that in our elementary settings, when the teachers are looking at in grade 3 the world cultures, the teachers have been directed to look at who is sitting in front of them as their students and to make their choices as to which cultures they're going to focus on based on the students that are actually in that grade at that time. Unlike in previous times, people have been using somewhat canned curriculum models where the kids always get a chance to do those penguins of Antarctica and they do Australia and they just touch on various places. We've been driving home the fact that this needs to be student-centered. You need to look at who is in front of you and make it sure that what you are teaching them and working with them, you're pulling from their own experience or you're helping them understand what their family experiences had been, so that we are in fact shifting that built into it already at the younger grades.
Great.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, please? Who is the budget person, your counterpart in the state education department? Good afternoon. Hello.
Yep, I'm thinking. I think the best person for you to reach is our intergovernmental relations person, and that's Nicholas Storelli Castro.
Nicholas Storelli Castro?
Yep, that would be the best person to reach out to. Is this Harold speaking?
Yes. One quick question. Do you think it would be in the interest of the Secretary of Education to have a budget bill submitted on behalf of the Commission through his office to be presented to the Division of Budget, outlining and furthering the work that SED has conducted in this area? I mean, it's been magnificent. Don't get me wrong. And I think that you should be really, really praised for everything that you have done. It's a tremendous report. But we can't do anything in this state without money, as we well know that. And in support of the cuts that have been made, do you think that the Secretary would be acceptable to a budget bill?
What I will do is, upon return to my office, I will have Mr. I can't even get his name right, Storelli Castro, in touch with you, Mr. Bellinger, along with Tanika, and we'll see, in fact, what can be worked out as far as a three-way. Given that you've had the experience already working with this type of work, I have no hesitance in having you communicate directly with him, and then he will be sharing that message with our commissioner, our senior deputy commissioner, all the other individuals as well. Okay?
Are the other commissioners in favor of us doing that?
Well,
Yes.
in fact,
Yes.
I was going to say,
the magnificent framework that you have, and you do need funding to implement and execute. So I think that I'm just speaking for myself. This is Sylvia Lewis. I'm a person who's concerned with curriculum and things of that nature, and I think it's a great idea. I think that's the frustration that we all have as commissioners, is that we have all of these great ideas and great goals, but we have this, we don't have the way to, the resources to reach to the students. So I think it's great. I give you my vote for a budget bill.
There's one other element that's involved, commissioners, and that is what is called the first instance appropriation through the finance committees. That does not cost New York State anything because that money is repaid. And I see this as a step to acquire foundation funding, such as the Ford Foundation, Skoll, and other foundations that exist across America. Not many states are involved in furthering the curriculum to this level. So I think that that could be also included. And what I'm going to do, Pam, are you there?
I'm here.
I'm going to do a rewrite on the budget bill that I'd submitted previously. Submit it to the commission members, and if they are in agreement, then this is going to have to be done very quickly, and then get it over to state education for some inclusion in the budget process. Of course, the key piece is a budget bill, not a program bill.
Right.
So, and I'll explain it with a memorandum of support.
I think that's a great idea. I think that the website committee, myself, I'm co-chair with Laz, I think we looked at the other states in the nation that had required high school students to graduate with a knowledge of Black history, and I think that we were saying that we wanted New York State to be ahead of that, and we are not among the public schools that require Black history education. I think it was Philadelphia and one other, I can't remember, but I think that our committee had come up with a list. It was just maybe 3 or 4 districts.
There were 4.
4, right? There was just I know Philadelphia was one, and I think it was Chicago. And then some little small place. Was it in Ohio? It was a very small town, and we couldn't even believe that they didn't even have Black people there, but they required that students to know Black history, because Black history is American history.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a question from Tamu Chambers.
Oh, well, I have a suggestion. In addition to what has already been outlined, which is excellent for the courses or to enhance it in like in K through 12, it's also important to know that at Hudson Valley Community College, I just completed an online course as well for African American history, and we also offer it to different high schools because it's a community college, and many of them are signing up for our courses through our ITV program, and we broadcast to 8 high schools now throughout the region. So that certainly could be another way of introducing African American history from the beginning all the way up until the 1960s. That's the course that I'm currently teaching now, and the online course also with all the bells and whistles for the students as well. So in honor of Carter G. Woodson, and with this being Black History Month, and that was one of his primary goals with integrating it, and I believe in the structural part, and that's where I am now with thinking about any of the courses and African American history to make sure that the history is honored and included also from 11 to 12. That's many of the students that we get from the high schools, as well. And I think that's an excellent way to introduce it to them, and they're getting credit for it. So that's where the motivation is.
Right. Wonderful. It's good to know.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, if I can add another thought here. This is John Cornu. I work with a lot of teachers in their buildings, and with all the changes to standards and suggestions in curricula over the last couple of years, time is always an issue. How do we fit this in? So I love seeing the fact that so much of this is tied into the modules that New York State made available. One thing to think about is that a lot of our elementary teachers, we found this in particular with math, and I imagine that we would find the same with African American history. They spend a lot of time in college on pedagogy structures, as they should, but they don't have the foundational knowledge, the background knowledge as to how to appropriately teach some of these concepts to the students. And it's just something to think about as we move forward. How do we support the colleges in supporting teachers to be?
Thank you for that comment.
Teacher training, yes.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments regarding Ms. Poland's report? Okay. Thank you. Great. Moving on to the online roster of expert volunteers. This is one of the specific deliverables from the Amistad Commission, and the purpose is to solicit from the public individuals who will be willing to share their expertise in African American history and the experience and progress with regard to not just New York State, but I guess in general, And in order to facilitate that process, the Department of State on its website, on the Amistad Commission's website, developed a form, questionnaire for members of the public to complete that will go, it's through a SurveyMonkey survey, and that program will collect information from individuals who desire to be part of the roster. And if you look through the online roster that was handed out to you, those are the questions that are asked and information that is solicited from that form. And also, if you look on the last page, there's actually one individual who did submit information. This form has been on the Amistad Commission's site since March of 2015, and so far we've only have one person that has actually filled out the form. In order for to list it on the website, we would have staff to perform internet search to verify the information submitted by the volunteer, just to make sure that we're getting appropriate information. We will then have the list verified, and once it's verified, it will be presented to the Commission's Educator Input Subcommittee for selection, and the Educator Input Subcommittee will report on the selected volunteers at the Commission meeting, and for the entire Commission to approve that actual volunteer, and then Department of State staff will list the person on the Commission's webpage. So just to make sure we are getting individuals who are indeed equipped to provide expert information and knowledge. So that is the volunteer form. Are there any questions or comments regarding the form or the process I just outlined?
I have just a thought when I looked at the application. This is Sylvia speaking. I thought that we should look at, in terms of volunteers, what age group they could work with and their experience of working with children or high school kids or college kids. It's that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking to. I do a slavery discussion group with the Quakers, and I think that when we're talking to the preschool to third grade groups, we actually do look for people who have experience working with children. So I was thinking that there should be something on the questionnaire or something that says your experience of working with teachers or with schools, or I don't know. What do you guys think? That's all I could think of. That we should have some.
That's a good point.
We can definitely add that
Well,
to the
I
survey.
think you should, but on the other hand, there are people who haven't had direct teaching experience who, because of their expertise or their particular life trajectory or something, could be valuable. So it's good to know that, but I don't think it should be a requirement.
No, not a requirement, but just like a point of reference. If you're, say, I know a gentleman that's in Bedford-Stuyvesant, and he has this huge African, maybe you know him, Enid, he has this wonderful African art collection, and his house is like a museum, and he really does like to he really does like to bring groups of kids, with their teachers to come in. So I don't know, he would fill out something to say, I'd like to have elementary school kids come through here, or high school kids or something.
That can also be achieved if obviously can be included in the application, but that can actually also be achieved in the vetting process once DOS makes outreach to them and ask additional questions to verify, those needs. Absolutely.
Right.
I have a comment on question 4. I guess I'm being a broken record about this, but where it says Pan-Africanism, I would broaden that to say African history and culture because Pan-Africanism is a very specific political movement that happened in the 60s, really. And it's not clear when you put that as a whole topic of interest what it covers. So I think in terms of the relevant background, it should be broader, and it should have some place there where it talks about the African past and present. So you could just say African history and culture, and you could add Pan-Africanism as a separate category if you wanted.
Where is that, on number 4?
It's number 4. Please describe your area of expertise.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. We will definitely make that change. Thank you for the suggestion.
African cultures.
African history and culture, I think, and also African art. I mean, the most accessible thing that people can see if they go to museums and things is work, not necessarily just traditional African art, but work by contemporary African and African diaspora artists. And through that, they can access sometimes African history and culture. So I think that's an area where you could also find people who have knowledge in those areas. Whereas Pan-Africanism is a very specific topic of a political movement that is important to establishing the history of African American contemporary identity, but it's not as accessible in terms of, it's not as broad in terms of expertise.
Thank you.
I like what Enid said, and I thought that when you mentioned about Pan-Africanism, it made me think about the phrase that we use nowadays as diaspora. I think that a lot of,
exactly.
We talk about diaspora. That word should be there, the experience of diaspora. Even at the Schomburg now, their studies and everything focuses on people who are here whose ancestors came from other places. And
there are all kinds of areas, like I just mentioned art, but also music is incredibly important.
Yes.
And in
culture.
The diaspora, and that's something that's accessible to kids of all ages.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Patricia has a comment.
Just on the item 6, I would add Lower Hudson, please.
Lower Hudson.
Because that addresses those people that are above the city but not in the Mid-Hudson Valley area. And there's a huge population.
Couldn't hear that. Oh, Lower Hudson.
Adding Lower Hudson to the number 6.
Okay, one thing that we would need commission members to help us with is outreach and letting others know about this form so that we can start to gather more individuals.
This form is on the website?
Okay. Yes, the form is on the website.
Okay.
So if you
I know they heard.
And reaching out to those in your networks to let them know that this is something on our website and that we are looking for individuals to add to the list to be posted to the website. So,
and we will promote via social media as well through the DOS social media channels, which I'll get into later.
Thank you.
So if you can send us, if you're going to make revisions, send us the finished form, and then we can forward it, I guess.
Sure, I will.
Is that how?
I will send
is
you
it a hard copy form, or is it going to be?
Form. I will.
Will it be a hard copy form, or will it be a fill-in on the website?
I will send you a link to the updated form. Thank you.
Maybe somebody can write a paragraph that we send with it to say who it goes to and what it's for.
That
and
is
why you're
already
collecting
listed
this
on the
information.
website as well, Enid. We do have a introductory paragraph about what the form is for, and that will be included in the link you will get when we update the form.
Okay, great.
You're welcome. Okay, subcommittee reports, website redesign.
Okay.
This is Laz. I'll start off, and please interject as needed. Since the last time we've met, We've taken some suggestions. Obviously, getting a lot of the content up. Sylvia's been a great resource for that. As always, we recommend everyone deluge us with information. Too much is never enough, and we can definitely get it up there. One of the suggestions we heeded was not just speaking about the experience of slavery, but making it more inclusive of all African American experience. So, if we get a news story on a great achievement by an African American or someone, a pioneer who passed away, we're going to post that there. Obviously, we have items and resources, Schomburg, the African American Burial Ground, that are specific to that, but we have widened it to convey more of the African American experience, not just in relation to slavery. So we've done that. We keep it very active with news stories. I have search terms that we put, and if it's specific to New York, we put it up. Even if it's not specific to New York, we want to keep those news items coming. That keeps the site robust, refreshed. And then we'll dive down to the resources. Again, that's just a call for more content. It's not a problem, but we do need content where we have the rights to post the material. We can always put a link, that's always allowable, but for legal reasons, if we want to promote one of the online courses or something that we have, or a book. If we know who the author is, we can make outreach, working together, get those rights. I think for a website like this, visuals are very important, but we also want to do it legally and not get ourselves in trouble for posting things. Authors love to have their books promoted, but the person who illustrated the book may want to get paid to have something up on the website. So basically what I'm saying is we want content, but we also want that content to come through channels where we have permission to use it and keep it refreshed.
How is that done? If I know an author, what do I do to get the content to the website?
You send it to Pam or I, and we'll, like I said, more is good. Not everything will make it, but we definitely could go through all the materials and get as much of it as possible up there. So yeah, send it directly to Pam or myself. And whether it's a news story, some of the ones that you sent to me, we had some, we missed the others, but we definitely can use everything in relation to the African American experience. So as far as those resources, send it to us, send us any art, and if there's any, I can go and get the permission, but if you have that contact, I know Sylvia has friends who have books that we can include here, we'd appreciate that. So we'll keep those resources coming. Last time, I know we had a website freeze. I'm happy to announce that is almost over.
Okay.
And the reason for that was that the state as a whole is updating all agency websites, and they're branding it to give a similar look as far as, the upline banner. Obviously, it's still going to be Amistad, it's still going to have its own look, but we need to conform with all the other state agencies, and we are finally getting some branding guidelines for that. So now we're at the stage where, eventually, perhaps by the end of this year is over, all the DOS website, including the Amistad Commission website, will be tweaked to make navigation easier. And at this point, what we're going to ask of the commission, I've been keeping a list. I know we've wanted an interactive map, a calendar of events. And I know in the last meeting, which my colleague, who's no longer here, was at, we wanted to break it up between pre-K through 12 and then lifelong. So if we have any other recommendations as to what we want on the website, please send those to me at your earliest convenience. whether it's a new section, apart from these four. So we'll take all those into consideration, and we provide a guideline of what we'd like, and eventually it will get done with the entire Department of State website. But your contributions on this will be very important. We can build a map, we can build an interactive site, but unless we have you folks coming to us to fill that information in, I mean, we'll do it manually through our systems, but we need to keep that. We can't have a calendar with nothing on it. So we'll all need to be very active. And the last thing, before I throw it over to Sylvia, is obviously with the volunteers, now we have social media channels that we can drive eyes to the website. So once we have a new resource or a new story, or the report or anything that we post, we can go through our DOS media channels and direct the public and traffic back specifically to the Amistad page and create some hashtags to further our message. So that is what we have now. If Sylvia has anything to add.
I thank you for that report, and that's very good. The only thing I thought that I could add to that was that I thought that we could do a push in social media via a press release to announce to the public that we are soliciting for the volunteers. Because it's one thing to have it on the website that, yes, please download, but I thought if we just put out a press release and say that we do want to hear from people, and we do welcome volunteers, and we do have this form, and just alert them to the form. And I think that maybe we would see more response, because I think we only got one response over 3 years or 2 years. So
no, we need to market it.
Yeah, we need to market that. So
this is where we begin now that we have the capability to get it out via social media. So I'll connect with Tanika and see what we can do via a press release or advisory of letting people know about the volunteer opportunity.
Right, and then the thing about the maps, I think it was one of the commissioners who lived upstate. I think that it seemed like that upstate, there in some of the communities upstate, there were more interesting work done, actually, a lot of work done on these historical landmark places that we could put this map together so that people in the state could see, that there's such a rich history of African Americans in New York State.
Absolutely.
Yeah, through history.
Yep. Like I said, it's all contingent upon us receiving that information, letting us know where these points of interest are, and we'll do our best to outfit the site with that.
Right, and I just also wanted to know what the guidelines should be for events. If we have an event, like the Academy of Music in Brooklyn has this major event for Martin Luther King, and I know it's a big, big event, but I wonder if if we have like a deadline. If if you want things a week in advance, a month in advance.
As far in advance as possible would be great. Understanding that that's not always possible.
Okay.
But at the very least, a week or two, because once we post it on the website, we're going to need time to put it up on social media. It needs time to get out there and people to see it. So just for those purposes, we could put something up. But if something's the next day, it's not going to resonate.
So just
as much time as possible, but a week or two to at least do a good job in getting the message out.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Yeah, this is James Turner. Hello?
Hello?
Hi.
Oh, hi, okay, maybe the phone went down on my end. This is James Turner. I want from Ithaca. I wanted to suggest that we consider making contact with the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Their national offices in Washington, D.C. And on these issues that we've been discussing on the last two and the current agenda item, I think we would find them an extraordinary resource. One, for the information that they collect and disseminate, and also notices of events that could be put up on our website. But I think that there's just so much. The recently elected president is Eleanor Higginbotham, and she's in African American Studies at Harvard. And at that level, even they could be helpful and to us. I just want to throw that out there.
Okay, great. Thank you for that suggestion. Moving on to the Educational and Cultural Resources Subcommittee.
So can I just say that, there's so many, that was a great suggestion, Mr. Turner. This is Tony Giardina in the Secretary of State's office. Great suggestion.
Yeah.
And one idea would be, for instance, to have maybe someone from that group participate in one of our next meetings so that they could understand hear some of these questions, understand some of the issues, because they may have some good ideas on how we can fulfill the mission and even go beyond the mission of what's strictly written in words in the statute, right? And do it on a shoestring, essentially, is what we're doing with existing staff and resources. They would have so many more ideas. So we have to sort of leverage. We have to just like we do in our a lot of our not-for-profit groups that we work with. You have to leverage the resources that are available to you. So that's a terrific idea.
I agree. I think that's a great idea, and I think that the other Amistad Commission has done, when they have their meetings, they often will have a guest visitor do a presentation during the meeting, and I think that would be great for us. I mean, we'd have to figure out who, like this person you suggested, but sometimes that, I think it helps the commissioners to kind of get focused, and because we're all here in different specific areas of expertise, and I think that's I love your suggestion. Thank you.
And that's great content for the site, for social media.
Right, it would be great for our...
Take pictures, we could do it at a reasonable...
Right, if they could share content for our website, that would even be even more wonderful too.
Thank you. The Educational and Cultural Resources Subcommittee, is there a report? I know Nicole is the chair and she's not on the call. Hearing no report from that committee, is there a report from the Educator Input Subcommittee? Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing anything right now.
No, you're breaking up. I'm sorry. Hello?
Okay. We're moving the mic now. I'm sorry, you couldn't hear me. I asked if there was a report from the Educational and Cultural Resources Subcommittee or the Educator Input Subcommittee.
The only thing from the
Nothing at this time for the committee, at least on my part. I don't know if any of the other members have moved forward with anything.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your comment. Was that Jonathan? Hello?
Who is the chair of that committee?
Hello? Can you folks hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Jonathan Cornu. I was tapped to be chair of that committee, but frankly, I've done very little with it. I know I wasn't able to make the last meeting, and it looks like Nuria Bonayones made some suggestions and had some ideas, but I don't know where those stand right now. So I'm open to suggestions, ideas, thoughts. I would like to see, and this kind of goes back to the website piece, we have social studies tied to the Engage NY website. I'm wondering if we can get the Amistad Committee tied to either that social studies link or directly to Engage NY, just so that it's one more resource that teachers can access.
That's a good idea.
Thank you. That would be a link to the
From NYSED to Amistad.
Yeah.
Let me see what we can do with that.
Okay. Thank you. All right, the next agenda item is the review and approval of the commission report. That report was sent via email, and I just want to remind the commission about what our deliverables are, or as outlined in the Cultural Affairs law, and that is to survey and catalog the extent of the African American history and history of slavery and the African American experience in the curriculum, K through 12 curricula in New York State, which this report does address. Also to develop further, which we've started at least, the roster of volunteer experts that will be a resource to the community. And lastly is to prepare reports to the legislature and to the executive regarding findings and recommendations from this commission on the goal of the commission, which is to increase the awareness and education of the history of African Americans and the African American experience and progress in New York State. So at this time, I will ask if there are comments about the report from commission members. I do want to structure this a little bit better so that we all not talking at the same time. So I'm going to go by location in terms of any comments that members may have. And I'm actually going to start with our city office to make any comments or propose any questions they may have with regard to the Are there any questions? Okay, go ahead.
To review it fully. I'm skimming it now.
Okay.
I had one comment on number 2, the findings, page 15, where it talks about the resources throughout the state. But New York City isn't in there, and I just wondered why. Because there are a lot of things like the Schomburg Center, the Studio Museum, the African Burial Ground.
New York City should have been in there.
There's other things too, you know, and maybe there's a reason for that.
No, that.
Page 13, did you say? Findings and
I think it's page 15.
Yes,
where it says,
page 15.
Finding, section 2, finding. The state of New York is home to a number of institutions of higher learning and other organizations that support and promote African American history and culture. And they go through the different parts of the state, but there's nothing about the New York metropolitan area where there's a lot of material that could be mentioned. And I didn't know whether that has to do with something with the Education Department of New York City being separate from this or what. But
no, the intent was to cover each region, and I'm
that we need to add.
But I will make sure that is added.
Because there's an enormous amount of stuff, especially if you include things that are open to the public, like museums, libraries, African Burial Ground, and some historic sites.
Exactly.
Okay.
Please, add New York City to that.
For the New York metropolitan area, so it can get, this
metro area.
Parts of Long Island, Westchester.
Right. Yeah, I see Long Island is actually.
Mentioned. Oh yeah, Long Island is there, right? Long Island is there, but you don't have the city. And somebody mentioned the Lower Hudson. Is that?
Yes, we will add that information into the report. Any other comments from the folks on the telephone call?
Is it the intent to circulate the final report to the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus and other legislators that may have an interest?
Once the report is finalized, it will be released to the public.
You gotta move the mic.
Yeah, no, we would send it to leadership in the legislature and the governor's office, and post it on the website.
Okay, and that's given the final report, correct? When do we anticipate having the final report?
Well, right now I'm soliciting.
Well, I'm sorry. Repeat, please.
Right now we're soliciting any additional comments from members to be included into the report, and once I have that information, we will be working to finalize it as soon thereafter.
Okay. The reason why I'm asking is if I'm going to develop a preliminary budget, then I think that that's going to be inclusive of having data from the final report in the budget bill. I can do the other than OTPS. I can do special contractual services. I can do the basics. But I will be, I'm saying to members, if you want to see a particular line included in a budget request, please contact me. Pam has the phone number. I think everyone has the phone number. I'll give it to you again. It is 631-920-2477. Please contact me because we have to move rapidly if we wish to be included in this year's budget process.
Any other comments from folks on the phone? Okay, moving on to Albany. Folks here and physically in Albany, are there any comments on the report?
Well, Tanika, this is Carlos. I thought the report was very comprehensive and it's really good. I also had an observation on page 15 in the same section as was raised by New York City. So in the findings area, and this is just, I'm just making an assumption based on how it reads, but you mentioned institutions of higher learning, and I'm assuming that that could also mean post-secondary education or colleges and universities. Mm-hmm. But yet, the subsequent section goes into the different regions of the state relative to the specified areas that teach, African American cultural kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But you don't go into the colleges at all.
There's a lot.
And so I know that.
And it's hard to summarize.
I'm wondering, because to me, you mentioned higher learning, but then you go into these. So, and there's nothing else said about that. So, is there
a suggestion that you have in order to? Is there some kind of summary of? Because there's tons of courses, there's tons of programs, there's tons of, not-for-profits that belong to universities that are dedicated to this particular work. So, it would be a lot to cover every university or college that has a program that relates to the mission of the Amistad Commission.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, it may have to be a general kind of thing where you mention SUNY, you mention SUNY, you mention CUNY, and then you mention privates.
Okay.
But at least be a little bit more specified.
May I ask where the recommendation came from? Was it from one of the members? The recommendation it says it's recommended that the Amistad Commission establish partnerships with institutions of higher learning and organizations similar to those listed above to conduct workshops, seminars, conferences for educators and the public. Such partnerships will provide additional dynamic opportunities for the enhancement of students' knowledge of African American history and culture. Was that from a member?
No, that was not from a member.
No. Something. No.
I think those recommendations were from previous commissioners. It looks like that these were leftover recommendations from years ago. Yeah, that's what I think, because I don't think that we in the commission board now, I don't think we actually put together a set of recommendations that we're looking at on this report. I don't recall that.
Actually, From the last meeting, Sylvia, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but each subcommittee was asked to meet to develop recommendations that would be included in this report. The only committee that met was the Educational and Cultural Resources Committee. And also Mr. Bellinger also added some recommendations, so those were reviewed and some were included in this report.
I see. What did we have our recommendations in here? The website and information?
The website is a recommendation. It doesn't go into specific items, but there is a recommendation. I believe it's recommendation 4.
Okay.
With regard to updating and improving the website.
Okay.
Well, just with regard to this particular recommendation, or finding, I should say, because it's really the findings that we're talking about here, we can certainly revise it to be more inclusive of either the regions and also the higher education institutions. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Would you be able to provide any resources that we can look at to kind of make some kind of summary?
Yeah, I think, tell me when we talk about that.
Okay, yeah,
and
we can do
see what we can come up with.
You don't have to list every university and college that has.
No. But I'm sure there's some that are more prominent than others.
That's right. I'm thinking the same thing. Highlight notable ones.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will connect and you guys will give us information put on that recommendation and finding. Thank you for that suggestion. Are there any other comments from?
Yeah, could I just ask that each commissioner take a close look at pages 2 to 3 and be sure to let Pam know if
All I heard was look at pages 2 to 3, and then you broke up.
Yeah.
Mike here. Hang on, we have to.
I did, yeah.
Here you go.
My suggestion is that each commissioner look carefully at how they are identified between pages 2 and 3, and to let Pam know if in fact the information needs to be edited in some format.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right, Pam, I was going to put that.
As soon as possible, that would be great.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other comments in regards to report or suggestions?
Is there a way that we could follow up on this question of colleges and universities in the state that have African American and African studies programs and departments?
Carlos Medina and Tamu, I'm sorry, thanks. Carlos Medina and Tamu Chambers are going to work on that and provide information to me that I will include into the report. So that is definitely being addressed.
Excellent.
Okay, hearing nothing else on the report, at this time we will contact members with regard to scheduling another meeting to hopefully finalize the report.
Second quarter.
Okay, sometime in the second quarter of this year.
Well, the next meeting would be. Can we finalize the report before they meet? Because as Harold wanted. Harold, can we offer that any of the information in the report, such as the details and the facts, can make available to you? Because I don't think we're going to be able to meet again as a group to vote and approve the report before your desired schedule to get a budget bill introduced. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Hello?
Hello?
Harold? Are you there?
Hello?
Who's there?
Okay.
Did you have a suggestion? Or?
Well, I was going to suggest, the report was just sent out last night, so people should look at it, read it carefully, and there's some people on the commission who haven't yet, who aren't here today, that may have comments, and I think in all fairness, people have been working on this and spending a lot of time on the commission. They should have an opportunity to voice, give their opinion about the report if they have any suggestions or whatnot. So we'll take whatever suggestions by email, and then probably have to meet again to approve it. Vote and approve it.
Do you have to meet to do that?
That was my,
Or
I don't.
can you do that electronically?
That I don't. I mean, we could probably do it informally if people don't object. We could probably just do it informally.
Because I know with other organizations now, what we've been doing is sending something out to all members and then asking them to vote by email of yes, I accept these as it is changed, and I vote to approve it, as opposed to trying to have people meet, because the time is of the essence right now.
Right. So I mean, I'm fine with that. If the commission's fine with it, then I think.
Right, I'm fine with that too.
Okay, I think worst case scenario, I think that to your point, if we informally adopt it for the purposes of how we're preparing a budget bill, and then formally adopt it at a formal meeting, I think that'll serve all the purposes that we're trying to accomplish. I think.
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean.
So then, am I hearing from a commissioner the intent right now as a commissioner to say that as a draft document, it's accepted with the changes as recommended at this meeting?
In any future.
And any future changes from commissioners not available to be here?
So that's
changes being submitted within the next week?
Yeah.
I think we should take a general consensus vote right now.
Okay. So so do we want to just do a general consensus vote right now to approve the commission report with the addition of the changes we discussed today, and giving the other members an opportunity to add their comments and it'll be as a group, right? We'll do a mass, we'll do an email with the whole group, so everyone can see what changes are being recommended and so on, and can respond. Is that okay with everybody?
That sounds fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Everybody on the phone okay with that?
Fine.
Yeah.
So, just taking a general consensus of from the board.
All in favor?
All in favor, please state aye.
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 Any objections? There are no objections. There is a general consensus that this to approve the report. So thank you, with the suggested changes and additional information that will be coming from members. So thank you very much.
And we'll try to wrap that up this week.
This week is Friday.
This week is Friday. Next week is week. Next week.
Thank you.
We want to get it out. We wanted to get it out.
Before this month ends.
That's right. I mean, before this month ends, Black History Month, of course. Yeah.
So the goal will be to get this report finalized and sent around to members by the end of this month.
Sent around to the legislative members. You mean we finalized before the end of the month, sent to the legislature and the governor's office before the end of the month.
Before the end of the month. Okay.
And just for clarity, then the part with the colleges, that should be done also?
If you could do
Yes.
that quickly.
Okay.
Yeah.